The Symphonium X Elise Europa. Let's talk about it. Now, this is a loaner sent out to me, so I do not have everything for this review. This is a 4BA IEM from a company, Symphonium, who've done a few other IEMs that I've at least graphed and kind of looked at. But this IEM is extremely expensive. It is $1,600. Let's start off by talking about the build quality of this IEM. Then we'll go from there. Now, the shell for me is really hard to wield or wear, whatever you want to say. But the problem is that it's very smooth and it's really easy to mishandle and just kind of drop, or you can tell it's kind of hard for me to kind of hold it. But its shell is nice, it's well made, it's metallic, flat 2-pin cable connector, nice nozzle, beautiful face plate. But it doesn't really have this thing about it where it has that kind of lip to help it breathe. It just kind of sits in here. The stock cable is nice. It's nice and black, blue and red connectors, which are great. Has a chin slider that stays in place very, very well. Kind of a generic Y split, not too exciting, but it's nice. The material of this cable feels really good in hand. It feels kind of spongy and feels comfortable on my ears and skin. Now, these style of cables, you can open these up and change this out. I do not have the other connectors, but it does come with the other connectors you might need. All right, let's look at this at the Elise website just real quick. You'll see a few things. Notice this is the tax for Americans, and Americans will pay tax on this. It's not too much. I want to say it's about 5%, but it's not super great. So you will have to pay some tax on this for imports, and they do not pay it for you. Now, this is kind of a retune of the Crimson, which has been out for a little over a year now. Pretty good acclaim. And if you look here at the Crimson versus the Elise Audio Europa, you'll notice a few things. It does graph a little bit here with a little bit less bass on the Europa, but on my rig, it's basically the same. There's a little bit less of this treble peak in here and a little bit less of this upper air region. And so we'll kind of think about that when we kind of go from there. And you got some other pretty pictures. And it has this fat technology. And so it has some nice technology going on, and they try to do some unique things. So the Europa is a very special set. It has smooth bass, clean mids, great graph, plenty of details and space. The issue, this almost matches the Jaytissofficial target pretty well, save a few minor things, but sometimes my target's a little bit boring, or at least it kind of can be. But this kind of adds a little bit of spice, and it takes away a lot of the sensitive regions for me. And it graphs pretty much better than most IEMs that I've reviewed, and it's really impressive, and it does a lot of things great for frequency response. It sounds clean and clear in ears. And it's a very nice IEM that to me is extremely impressive and one of the better IEMs out there, especially for my library and my preferences. So let's look at some graphs and kind of go from there. All right, so if you look at the Europa, you'll notice it has a really nice graph, very good bass, basically right at my target, which is kind of nice. It doesn't happen very often. A few other IEMs have done that. But it also has a nice dip here around 4 to 5K, which is a really good thing. Has a little bit of detail here from 5 to 6K, which could be good or bad. But it just sounds really nice in ears, and its FR sometimes is indicative of how it's going to sound, sometimes it's not. I want to compare this to a few other Symphonium IEMs. Some I've reviewed, some I've graphed, some I've owned, and we'll kind of go from there. First one I want to compare this to is the Crimson. We talked a little bit about this when we looked at Elise's graph, but I want to show you this in mine. It does supposed to graph slightly less in bass and a little bit less in bass, like 1 to 2 decibels here. It's hardly noticeable, and it's not really that big of a deal versus the Crimson. But what you'll notice is just a few things here, like the upper air and treble has kind of been dialed back a little bit, and it's just a little bit more refined. The Crimson had some good things, but sometimes when you have that much air, it actually kind of makes the bass feel a little bit off. And the problem for me with the Crimson is that it was bright. It is a nice set, and I appreciate the crimson, but it was one of those IMs that I bought and then sold quickly just because it wasn't for me. I wanted to show this on Elise's audio. I haven't asked, but this is literally their IEM, and I'm doing them a service in some ways by talking about this. So, we'll go from here. I have heard the Titan, and Symphonium did the Titan, and I was not a fan of it. I'm not going to say much more than that, but you just see how much bass it has. I thought it was a little bit too much of a canon. Like maybe it should have started a little bit later, or it just was just too much for me, and it just sounded muffled. And I do feel there's such thing as too much bass, and the Symphonium Titan was one of those ones for me that I highly considered buying, but having demoed it and a few other listener ears that talked about it, I just don't really feel that it's for me. And I think the Europa is a much better set. Another one, a lot of people like the Meteor. I don't get the Meteor like at all. I owned the Meteor as one of my first sets I bought because a lot of people were kind of hyping it, and it not great, not a fan. I know a lot of people love it. I do not. I'm in the category that feel like it doesn't have enough treble and just has a thunderous amount of bass. And I know my unit measured really crazy, so I actually removed the graph of it. But you do you. But for me, the Europa is just a fantastic set and better. I wanted to show you a couple of the Monarchs as we quickly kind of talk about how good this set is. Now, the one in green is the one that is Mark Ryan's unit. Mine is the unit in red. You'll notice there's some difference to those. I'm going to remove his just to make it a little easier to see. But you'll notice how kind of even kilter these are. There's a lot of similar frequencies. These really trade blows. I personally like the Monarch Mark II better, but it's so close that I feel like I'm grasping at straws. Like, it's one of those things that, you got to try them both rather than trying to say which one's better just by an FR. To me, it's a tie-up. It's a tie-up. You could go either way depending on your preferences, but to even describe their sound, I mean, to me, the Monarch's a little bit more clean and pristine, and the Elise does have a little bit better bass and is a little bit more thunderous. I feel like depending on how they fit in ear, you might like one or the other. For me, the Monarch fits a million times better, and that's kind of why I would go with the Monarch over the Elise or Europa. But if it fits better for you, it might even sound better for you, and that's a little bit of my concern. One I'm going to show this next to is the Annihilator. Now, I love the Annihilator. I was A-B'ing these, and to me, the Annihilator is a lot better set, even more so than what my graph would say. I'm kind of, I love my Annihilator, but it's purchase bias and all that kinds of stuff. But, I mean, if you notice, it does kind of have a bit of bass. It is a little bit bumpy at times. It does kind of dip, so it's mids even on the Annihilator, and a little bit off, but not bad. Both of these are good graphs, beautiful graphs, but there's even a case to be had for that the Europa has a better thing than the Annihilator, which is a lot more expensive. So just some things to think about. As we go up the case, I really like the Mega 5 EST bass, and it just has way too much bass, and that's kind of its problem. It lacks a little bit of treble right around this 2K region, and it's just it's not a bad set, but it can come across a little bit too lack of sparkly. Like, a lot of people prefer the regular Mega 5 EST, which I don't know, I can see that, but it does feel dull. And so, like, depending on preferences, and oftentimes with a lot of these big time IEMs that are good, you're only talking about a difference of a couple dB here and there. And so, I mean, that's just something to know. Like, here, it seems like the Europa is a little bit bassier, a little bit better upper mids, a little bit more sparkly and detailed, and it doesn't fatigue me at all. And I think it's just a really great listen. All right, the Europa. Let's rank it up. Great set. Giving it overall 9.5, and this is one of those sets that's tough because it does bass, it does mids really, really well. I feel like its mids are really good, but the problem is it doesn't do anything special on the mids. As far as imaging goes, there's sometimes it feels a little bit blunted, but its overall image as well, it's very bassy, and it has a really good open soundstage. I think depending on your preferences, depending on whether the shell fits you, if your preferences lie with mine, this could easily go up, I mean, somewhere between a 10 or even maybe a little bit lower depending. I think it's a fine IEM, absolutely fantastic, and one of those legendary IEMs that if you get a chance to listen to, I would definitely recommend it, as I think it's super special. Beautiful IEM, great build quality and design. The shells aren't really for me. I have a hard time fitting some of these metallic shells in ear. Something like the Mecha, while I don't like the sound of the Mecha as much as I do this guy, it fits me a lot better. I would encourage Symphonium to maybe do customs or to have a shell that's a little bit more made for humans, actually have ears that can maybe kind of give a little bit of tactile feel to them, as you can see in a lot of other IEM shells. And that's one of my major faults with this IEM. I think price is prohibitive. I think there's other IEMs that are similar in price that may or may not work for you depending on what you want. Again, great IEM, beautiful IEM, but expensive and has fit problems for me, which make it an IEM that I probably would own or highly consider. But to me, fit and comfort are one of the most important things about this hobby, and that's one of the main reasons why I recommend you guys to demo IEMs, not just rely on frequency response or a couple of reviews. Thanks for watching my video. You guys have any questions or comments? Let me know in the video notes below, and I hope you guys have a great day. You're still here. It's over. Go home. Oh, you're expecting a teaser for our next video. Well, we don't have that kind of money. What are you expecting? One of those store reviewers to show up in a saucy little leather number? Go. Oh, I can tell you one thing. We are going to have a collab video. We have no idea what it's going to be. Probably Kryn, maybe Chris. Or Joyce. Don't deny it. She's got range. Go. Get out of here. Go.
Go!
Go.
Go on with you!